I've read a lot of stories talking about how Donald Trump is going to easily win 2020, about how the data shows it's going to be a 2020 landslide for Trump. We've had many stories from the New York Times talking about his favorability being higher today than when he got elected, his base being larger, economic factors in his favor, the incumbent advantage. We have Moody's analytics saying he wins in almost every forecast model. However, take a look at this story from Newsweek. Steve Bannon says Nancy Pelosi is winning and will impeach Donald Trump. Well, wait. Impeachment doesn't mean Trump is removed. It just means he's impeached. Will he be convicted? That's going to be up to the Senate. And the Senate is dominated by Republicans, but many people are concerned not enough Republicans are voicing their defense of the president. Perhaps it's possible the Democrat strategy of negative partisanship works. This is the game. It's the point of impeachment, okay? They know none of their candidates are strong enough to beat Trump. So they're not going to rely on their candidates. They're going to rely on Trump himself. Instead of trying to beat Trump, they're going to try to force him to lose. Negative partisanship does drive voter turnout. And here's where it gets interesting. A forecast model going back to July shows that with maximum negative partisanship, guess what? The Democrats actually win. And here's where it's interesting. If the goal of negative partisanship is to drive voter turnout, it actually aligns with Moody's analytics showing that maximum turnout results in the same electoral count, narrowly giving Democrats the win. Now, you may be saying, come on, man, there's too much data showing a Trump victory. He's the incumbent, right? With a booming economy. You're right. And I agree. I think Moody's is going to be right on this one. But let me give you one quote. Let me give all the Trump supporters this important quote from Lao Tzu. There is no greater danger than underestimating your opponent. So it would be wise to heed the warning of Steve Bannon and to look into what's going on with the impeachment hearing, why it may actually drive massive voter turnout, and Trump could actually lose in 2020. You may be thinking it's impossible, but again, the biggest mistake you'll make is underestimating your opponent. So let's get started with the story and see exactly what Bannon had to say. Now, before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There's multiple ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, and I seriously mean this, share this video. I'm competing with these big companies. I don't have a massive marketing budget. And think about it. If all 100,000 people who watch this shared it, it'd get infinite views, right? Well, that's the best way you can support. Be greatly appreciated. But let's read from Newsweek. They write, Steve Bannon said on Sunday morning that he believes Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is winning the impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump and will impeach the president. But I will add, okay, the House is dominated by Democrats, so of course they were always going to vote for impeachment, right? Depends on what happens in the Senate, because this is all on tribal lines and the facts are probably irrelevant. But there is some tomfoolery afoot, which I'll get to in a minute. Bannon, who previously served as a top strategist and senior counselor for the president, made the remarks during an interview with radio talk show host and billionaire John Katzimatidis, can't pronounce it, on The Answer in New York. The Trump official, who co-founded the alt-right website Breitbart News, went on the show to promote his news podcast called War Room Impeachment, which intends to defend the president. Pelosi, the top Democrat in Washington, quote, will impeach the president of the United States on 2 counts. 1, abuse of power. The other, obstruction of power. Did they mean obstruction of justice? Obstruction of power. Bannon told Katzimatidis. He classified her impeachment inquiry as the most sophisticated political warfare and the most sophisticated political disinformation campaign. I will stop. If their goal is negative partisanship, that's exactly what they need to be doing. It is their last-ditch effort. It is their Hail Mary. So it makes a ton of sense. And I think Bannon's correct on this one. They're winning right now, the former White House strategist asserted. He said his podcast was set up to provide the American public with the facts and the details of the witnesses, the testimony, the legal arguments. Bannon argued that he would defend Trump until he was, quote, acquitted. Democrats launched the fast-moving impeachment inquiry against Trump at the end of September after an anonymous government whistleblower raised concerns that the president was abusing his office to pressure Ukraine to launch investigations in an effort to damage his political rivals. We know all that. And the story is actually quite complicated. But if we're talking about, look, if it's tribal lines, the basis of what the impeachment inquiry started on makes no sense. It makes no difference. In the end, the Democrats are going to vote in the majority to impeach Donald Trump. It'll move to the Senate, and none of this matters. But I will make a couple important points. First, we've had Bill Taylor testify essentially in its opening statement that Trump was trying to gain political favors. All of a sudden, the media started screaming quid pro quo. This proves it, right? Here's the problem I have. If you have 7 witnesses come out saying Trump did not do this, and then one person comes out and says he did, why is that the truth? Because that's what happened. We have all of these witnesses, saying no, but then sure enough, one guy comes out. Now we can start getting into the nitty-gritty of what's actually going on and why Steve Bannon is calling it disinformation and political warfare. And to give you an idea, I turned to this tweet from Matt Gaetz. He said Democrats are trying to use the natural advantage they have with the mainstream media to have secret interviews and selective leaks. They're trying to pollute the American electorate with lies about the president. Well, here's a bigger breakdown from Newsbusters. I'll give you the gist of it, the general idea. The only information we're getting out of these hearings is beneficial to Democrats. Apparently, in some of these interviews where, yes, there are Republicans, the Republicans aren't leaking the information as to what's going on. But the information that is being leaked is widely beneficial to the Democrats. Why is it that Bill Taylor testified in secret, but we know what his opening statement was? How come we haven't heard from the other individuals? Now, there have been some statements and some leaks from the Republican side, notably that one individual stated that Schiff was essentially pressuring him into saying the president was trying to get quid pro quo and such. So it is a little bit of back and forth. But let's break this down. Let's read exactly what happens from Newsbusters. They say, GOP rep exposes media following Adam Schiff's playbook. During a contentious interview on MSNBC Thursday morning, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz defended the move by House Republicans to demand transparency in the impeachment inquiry and hammered the liberal media for using selective leaks from Democrats to declare President Trump guilty without ever having seen public testimony from witnesses. Quote, I haven't actually heard you say anything since Bill Taylor testified, anchor Haley Jackson noted on the 10 a.m. Show. Referring to the former diplomat's closed-door testimony regarding the Ukraine controversy, she then demanded of Gaetz, yes or no, is it okay for any politician to trade military aid for political favors? The Florida lawmaker replied that it would not be appropriate before adding, I also don't think that's what the president did. Now, here's the game that gets played. When did you stop beating your wife? Loaded questions. Because only select information is being leaked from these hearings, the questions posed by the media will, in the end, just make Trump look bad. Is Trump guilty? We don't know. Trump released the transcript, and all of a sudden the whistleblower's gone. If you want to wage an impeachment inquiry, shouldn't the whistleblower be front and center? But as soon as it came out that the whistleblower had ties to Schiff and that Schiff had effectively lied by stating he had no contact with the whistleblower, all of a sudden the whistleblower's gone. Poof, like smoke. But here we are in an impeachment inquiry, and the Republicans and the public are not seeing all of the information. Now, it's true there are Republicans on these committees, but they can't talk about what's happening because it's all in secret. Well, conveniently then, Bill Taylor, who finally says something bad about the president, has his opening statement leaked, and now the question is posed as if it's a fact when nothing has been proven. Moments later, Jackson insisted, it appears from the testimony that we have seen reported publicly from the witnesses here that this is in fact what the president did. Gaetz cut her off. From the selective leaks provided by Adam Schiff that aren't subject to cross-examination. No, like, see, you're playing the game here, Haley. Jackson breathlessly fretted. So do you dispute the facts then? Gaetz pointed out that the facts she was citing were only from one side. You're playing the game where they selectively leak stuff that is not subject to cross-examination, rigorous review, check against documents and timelines. And this is what Bannon was saying. It is political warfare. And boy, is it sophisticated. Finally, Gaetz and others storm that hearing room, and it doesn't matter. It's all on partisan lines. Now, here's the thing. Most of you know this. I'm highlighting this just to get into detail on why Bannon thinks Pelosi is winning. And I'm inclined to agree. Trump is going to lose this impeachment fight, it sounds like. He's going to be impeached. He's going to then rally his base. He's going to make a lot of donations off of it. But in the end, it may sour independents. We've seen some data suggesting independents are starting to flip. So this is bad news. It is a clever strategy to make sure only your side gets your information out. No cross-examination, no public trial. And now they say, many of the critics on the left say, hey, hold on. We're playing the same game that they did with Nixon and with Clinton. But here's the problem. The leaks are selective. For the most part, what we are seeing is what makes Trump look bad. So let's get to the main point here. The election in 2020. Is negative partisanship going to work? Will impeachment actually strike Trump down? I bring you now to this forecast model, which actually shows Democrats earning 279 electoral votes to the Republican 179. And this forecast model is based off of negative partisanship. So right now, let's scroll up a little bit and I'll show you the front. This is from the Wason Center from June. With 16 months to go, negative partisanship predicts the 2020 presidential election. I'm going to give full credit to Sam Seder for informing me on this. Many of you may not know. Recently, I did a long-form discussion with Sam Seder. It was very respectful. I think it was a wonderful conversation. Sam is of the opinion that Trump should be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors. I don't want to misquote him, but that Trump has actually committed wrongdoing. But he goes on to state that politically, regardless of whether or not it's the right or wrong thing to do, it will benefit Democrats due to negative partisanship. All of these hearings, all of the leaked information is designed to make Trump look bad so that regular Americans don't go out to vote for Beto O'Rourke or for Joe Biden. They go out to vote against Trump. This 2020 election is Trump on trial, period. The Democrats don't matter, and we all know it. But think about how scary that gets. The Democrats are embracing ridiculous policies that even Bill Maher went through on his show just a couple days ago saying, this is nuts. They're crazy. But no one cares about them. So the activist base of the Democrats is going to prop up one of these crazy fringe far leftists, and people are going to vote for them not because they like the ideas, but because they don't like Trump. That is not healthy for democracy, and truly, I find this terrifying. But let's take a look at the prediction. Negative partisanship, predicting that Trump is going to lose. Let's scroll down and take a look at the actual electoral map, with Democrats taking 279 votes. The report reads, because my 2020 model relies on the 2018 vote to estimate the 2020 vote, it is naturally designed to account for this unexpected bipartisan turnout surge. As such, my expectation is the 2020 model will be better than the 2018 model, which was built with Virginia's one-sided Democratic turnout surge as a turnout guide. So with no further ado, Democrats recapture the presidency. The leaking of the Trump campaign's internal polling has somewhat softened the blow of this forecast, as the polling reaffirms what my model already knew. Trump's 2016 path to the White House, which was the political equivalent of getting dealt a royal flush in poker, is probably not replicable in 2020 with an agitated Democratic electorate. And that is really bad news for Donald Trump, because the blue wall of the Midwest was then and is now the only viable path for Trump to win the White House. Why is Trump in so much more trouble in the Midwest? First, and probably most important, is the profound misunderstanding by, almost everyone as to how he won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania in the first place. Ask anyone, and they will describe Trump's 2016 Midwestern triumph as a product of white working-class voters swinging away from the Democratic base on the appeal of Trump's economic populist messaging. Some will point to the survey data of disaffected Obama to Trump voters, and even Sanders to Trump voters, as evidence that this populist appeal was the decisive factor, and this is sort of true. So I'm not going to get into the full details. I just want to show you the general consensus. They're saying these are the factors why some people think Trump won, and they're predicting Trump is going to lose because you can't win again. Now, here's the thing. Check it out. Democrat, 279 votes based on a negative partisanship model. Let's jump over to Moody's. What did Moody's say if Democratic voter turnout is high? They win the blue wall states, many of them. With 279 votes, they win the presidency. Now that, to me, is interesting. Trump is favored to win in all of their economic forecast models. I think that's important to point out. With average turnout, Trump easily wins. With minimum turnout, Trump nearly gets 400. But with maximum turnout, 279. Well, as the data shows us, and what they believe to be true, smearing the president is their best shot at winning, making the election about Trump on trial, first and foremost above everything else. To me, it's fascinating. Now, here's where it gets scary. If Bannon is right and that this strategy works, what does that mean for our political system? If this really is just meant to be negative partisanship political warfare to win an election, and we end up with some fringe far left presidential candidate who's at the controls of the ship, that's substantially worse than Donald Trump. Did you see what Bernie proposed only a couple weeks ago? Giving 20% of all major corporations to the workers, having the workers vote on who was on the board. This was specifically cited by a socialist website, one of the most popular, as being Bernie giving the means of production to the people, a large push towards socialism. Now, there's a lot wrong with socialism, and there's a ton of things wrong with giving 20% of a company to its employees. First of all, how do you determine when they earn it? The goal is to create a public fund that pays out dividends to the employees. So the idea I actually agree with. What I don't agree with is a government telling the companies they must function this way, because it is an ever-increasing push towards socialism. There's a lot to argue about there, but suffice it to say, if Bernie is elected, that's what we can look forward to. And people aren't going to be voting for Bernie. Many will. Of course, he's got a large base. They're going to be voting against Trump. And this is what's scary. If this forecast model is true, and it probably isn't, let's be honest, okay? Moody's is historically accurate. The first time they got it wrong was Donald Trump. And now they're saying he's going to win. Well, maybe they're getting Trump wrong again, but many people expect that Trump's going to win by almost every metric. But this is what Democrats are looking at. They're looking at a future in which they win not by championing good ideas, not by rallying the people behind a strong candidate. They're looking at just making sure Trump loses. That's their path to victory. And I know it's not the first time this ever happened. It's always been a big strategy in elections. But what does it mean for us moving forward? If the president we end up getting is just a crazy fringe person because we hate the other person so much, I mean, that's basically been the track we've been on for this long, the lesser of two evils. But this, to me, is the lesser of two evils on steroids. This is them literally saying, we know our candidates are nuts and could never win because Americans don't like them, but you gotta vote for them anyway. Even Bill Maher, his segment was fantastic. And he's also said some really ridiculous things on that show the other day. Don't get me wrong. But he talked about Beta wanting to tax churches, about, giving gender affirmation surgery to prison inmates. And Bill Maher asks, are you really concerned about losing the transgender prison population vote to Donald Trump? Why are you campaigning on these things? Now, by all means, campaign for people who need your help and propose policies that will make life better. But why are the Democrats so focused on these fringe policies? And then he plays this clip of Richard Gere saying, I've got nowhere else to go. And that's scary, isn't it? That's really scary. If the activist base of the left has taken the reins and these politicians are the primary is going to go to the craziest and most fringe far left candidate, and then the Democrats use all their power to smear Trump to the point where people hate him so much they'll vote for literally anything, we end up with a truly deranged president. Now listen, I am not a Trump supporter. I would prefer somebody else, but not many of these crazy Democrats who are proposing ridiculous policies. I don't know what the answer is, but it looks to me like we're facing a downward spiral no matter what we do. I must stop here and say this. For all of Trump's faults, Trump is not that bad. Okay, I love citing, I don't know if you guys know who Flecka's Talks is. I always mention this because he does a segment where he walks around asking people, Trump's not really that bad, right? And that's the truth. Bill Maher said some really ridiculous things I can't even repeat because I'll get in trouble on YouTube. And while I may think Trump is doing a lot, he does bad on many issues, okay? And some of his foreign policy has been really bad. He's got a big victory today. He's had his victories. The economy is doing well. I must admit the economy is doing well. I understand that. And I can still look forward and think we can do better. That's fine. But to act like Trump is so awful, we should put in anyone, if they've a glass of water with a D on it, to quote Nancy Pelosi. No, that's absurd. If the country is doing okay for now, you might have a pilot who's shaking the plane and you're really nervous, but at least you're still flying. It's more worrisome to me when you get one of these activist-based, Democrats who come in and literally say we're going to do barrel rolls and sharp turns, and you might actually crash. It's concerning to me when you have the impeachment inquiry's intention being to literally make the pilot crash the plane. That's what scares me. Look, man, Trump won. He won for a lot of reasons. Maybe he won't win again. But this, to me, is worrisome. Negative partisanship leads to street fights and violence and anger and people storming rooms, and it brings us dangerously close to actual conflict in our political divide. Perhaps we should present good ideas, fight back, and try to win. And if Trump gets a second term, well, that's how democracy works. Okay, that's how our democratic institution within a constitutional republic works. I'll leave it there. I know this is I'll end with the quote from Lao Tzu, man. Okay, many of you may be thinking Trump will never lose. I'm sure there are some people on the left and in the center who are thinking, hey, you know what? Trump will never lose, but they want him to, right? There are many Trump supporters thinking there's no way Trump's going to lose. This is naysaying. It's being pessimistic. There is no greater danger than underestimating your opponent. That goes for and against Donald Trump. To those on the left and the center and anybody who wants to see Trump out, if you think this is good news and you're going to win, you're making a grave mistake. But if you're a Trump supporter and you're ignoring the strategy and the game they're playing, you're making a big mistake as well. I think Bannon has his finger on the pulse, and he's got a good idea about what's going on. And if he's saying she's winning and Trump's going to get impeached, this could be bad news in 2020. The negative partisanship model shows Trump losing. But all we can do is wait and see. And boy, I am so excited to figure out what finally happens come 2020. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different channel. Seriously, a lot of people don't seem to know that I have another channel where I do more cultural stuff. I've had people commenting saying, Tim, all you ever do is talk about politics and Democrats and Trump. And I'm like, well, it's 2020. Like we're in election season. The primary race is on. And this is my main channel. If you want cultural stuff, talking about video games, and I did a segment on like a young woman who wandered through the jungle and got lost, youtube.com/TimCastNews. I'll see you all there.